A couple of months ago, I decided to participate in a $3,000 art contest. Innocent and naive as I am, not only was I sure I would win this one, I also thought I would win two $300 art contests hosted by the same company. We'll see later if I end up winning, but in the meantime, let me show you the pictures I made for that contest. In the first contest, if I remember correctly, there wasn't any restriction other than drawing someone who belonged to Zenless Zone Zero, so I decided to be creative. My idea was drawing both of the main characters, Bill the girl and Wise the boy, in the middle kind of inviting us, the viewer, to play the game. Added the logo and a bamboo in the bottom and some characters in the top. Since Zenless Zone Zero has a very comic-esque aesthetic, they're going to be separated by comic panels, and I'm going to add comic textures in the background later. I started by sketching the basic composition in my sketchbook to see whether I liked the idea or not. I thought my sketch had potential, so I took a picture of it and imported it on Procreate to refine it. I started by making sure the MC's bodies looked okay. I wanted to make them look like they were jumping or something and we're looking at them from below. So there's a bit of foreshortening, and I wanted to make sure the perspective looked okay and their bodies don't look broken or anything. I struggled with these guys a lot, for different reasons. I didn't like the way I drew Bill's face, and I also couldn't figure out a way to draw her skirt and shoes properly, since in the splash art and game they look different. And also you can zoom in the character in ZZZ like you can in Genshin or Star Rail, so that made it very tricky to draw Bill's outfit. But none of this compares to all of my struggles with her brother. Because of the perspective, I couldn't get his shoulders right. I drew them way too many times, probably more than 20, and I'm not exaggerating. Most of the time I spent working on this drawing, I spent it on Wise alone, because no matter how hard I tried, his upper body looked really weird and really broken, mainly because of his jacket. I couldn't figure out a way to draw it properly, and it still looks bad in the end and makes all of his body look really weird. Not to mention that because I focused so much on his torso, I kind of forgot about his legs and they look really long, and I forgot to add an indication of his shoes, and yeah, that looks really weird. I drew in the background Nicole because she's very representative of the game, Harumasa and Seth because they're way too cute, Piper and Rena because I like their designs, and Ellen because her banner was the first. To be honest, I don't think I did that good of a job with Seth and Nicole. They looked really weird in the end. Rena's body also looked bad. It looks really broken. I wanted to draw her leaning in a way, but it's not too obvious and it looks really bad. And also Piper and Ellen look really cramped. Yeah, the characters in the background are a little rough. But I think Rena's and Harumasa's faces looked really cute, so at least that's something, I guess. I wanted to make sure this drawing looked clean, so after my sketch I made another sketch to clean things even more and to make things even faster and easier for the liner later. After that I started the liner, even though I wanted to keep things clean. For certain parts like Seth's outfit, things ended up a bit messy, but I thought if you have to zoom in to see that, it's probably okay if it doesn't look perfect since he's not the focal point. And Belle and Wise do look somewhat clean, so that's fine. Even though I participated in this contest, I haven't played the game much. I played enough to be able to see all of the characters in the archive or whatever that's called, and to be able to claim my free Harumasa because he's way too cute, and even if I don't play the game I still wanna have him. But other than that, I don't know much about the game. I already played Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, and Ensemble Star, so I don't have much time left for another game in my schedule. For the background, I added some patterns to imitate comics and used random colors I thought complemented the color of the character. To be honest, the background aged really poorly. I think it looks really amateur and awful, and yeah, I don't like it at all. To make things easier for me, I grouped everyone's hair, skin, eyes, and clothing in the same layer. Like everyone's hair in one layer, everyone's clothing in another layer, and so on. So I simply used layers set to multiply to add shadows to all of them at the same time to make things a lot faster. I plan to keep things simple for the coloring, so I'm going to still shade everything with the lasso tool and won't add any strong lighting scenario. I started the coloring by shading their skin. After that, I added shadows to their clothes and accessories. For their hair, I only added basic shadows like all of the sections that are behind them or the strands that overlap. I didn't notice this in the moment, but I totally forgot to add shadows to Harumasa's hair, but since he's so small, it's not very noticeable. For their eyes, I added a darker version of the base tone of their eyes in the middle, a lighter shade on top and bottom, and multiple highlights all around the ears to make it look shiny. I would normally make sure their eyes look even better, but since the characters in the background are very small, I figured it might not be necessary. After adding the shadows to their hair, I added highlights with one layer set to add. I did this for everyone but Seth. Since his hair is white, the highlights don't really show up, so I didn't have to bother. Okay, that's pretty much all I did for the first entry. Now let's see the second one. This one is off Chingy. I based this off one frame of her character demo because I like the pose, but a lot of different effects and lighting so it doesn't look exactly the same. A fun story about this drawing, I was working on it right before Natlan came out in Genshin Impact, so doing this was my way to kill time while waiting for the update to come out. This drawing was a lot easier than the previous one, by far. That one took me about 20 hours and this one only around 6, which is crazy because I usually spend from 3 up to 6 hours in a drawing of a torso up, like the ones in this video, and the fact that this one is a full body and took me almost the same time is insane. Although I did struggle a little bit because I didn't know how to draw her legs because I wanted us to look at her from below because I don't learn from my mistakes and struggles with Ys, but everything went somewhat smoothly. Although now that I remember, her weapon and shoes took me a bit to figure out because of the zooming in problem I mentioned earlier. I also wanted to make the lighting more interesting, so she's being backlit. I used the layers to multiply all over her and erase it where I didn't want it. And Chingy is done. I'll show you the time-lapse of another drawing I made for another ZZZ contest while I tell you about the results and what I learned from the whole experience. Now, the moment of truth. Did I win? No, I didn't. It makes sense since the first picture has a lot of mistakes I didn't notice at first, and some I did notice at first, but I decided to ignore them. I also was a little too naive. I thought not many people would participate since the game was just released, and that would increase my chances of winning, but that clearly wasn't the case. I also underestimated the amount of participants the other two contests would have. I also didn't win those. At the very least, I like how Rina's and Harumasa's face turned out. I like how Chingy turned out too. And I don't like how Jane Doe, the one you're seeing right now, turned out, so yeah, I understand why I didn't win that one. If anything, I'm glad my most recent drawings have turned out a lot better. In case you wanna see one of them, I'll link the video right here. See you there, bye bye!